September 3rd Blue Spring City Council meeting. If you would stand with me, I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and then we'll get started. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. First item on the agenda is a confirmation of a quorum.
Councilmember Kaler,
Present.
Tholen,
Present.
Fowler,
Present.
Erickson.
Present.
Councilmember Edmondson is absent. Councilmember Culpepper,
Aye.
Mayor Levesey.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Next is the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Kaler,
Aye.
Tholen,
Aye.
Fowler,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Culpepper,
Aye.
Mayor Levesey.
Aye.
Carried unanimously.
Next item is a public hearing for flex spaces rezoning and general development plan. City clerk will read the items to the exhibit.
Mayor, the city has one exhibit to enter into the record. A city council information form dated August 27th, 2024 with the following attachments. Staff report with attachments, application with attachments, applicant presentation, Title IV Land Use Section Blue Springs Code of Ordinances by reference, 2014 Comprehensive Plan by reference, bill approving the rezoning, and bill approving the general development plan. This is all we have to enter for the record.
Staff, if you'll be sworn in and give us your report.
I do. Dave Montgomery, 903 West Main Street, on behalf of the city. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Before you this evening is a planning application for a rezoning and general development plan with an alternative development standard. This project is called Flex Spaces and it's located at 3405 Northwest Jefferson Street. It is on a property that's approximately 4.19 acres in total size and spans across 2 lots. Currently, the property is zoned LI Light Industrial as well as GB General Business. What's being proposed for this rezoning request is to rezone the entire property to Light Industrial. The Light Industrial District is intended to primarily accommodate industries that produce finished products from semi-finished materials and require little to no outside storage of materials. The district provides locations for limited manufacturing and industrial activities with limited land use impacts. Primarily, the traffic is generated by delivery vehicles and employees. The applicant has indicated that the proposed development will utilize the existing land use, which is storage and residential warehouse, that exists to the north at the original Flex Spaces location located on Northwest Duncan Road, along with office and retail land uses. However, the light industrial district does allow additional permitted land uses that can range from commercial to light industrial in nature and of different intensities. Properties to the north and the east of the development retain the light industrial zoning designation and feature a mix of light industrial land uses, while those to the south and to the west have the general business zoning district and feature hotel, vehicle repair limited, and bar or tavern land uses. The comprehensive plan designates this particular area as a neighborhood center, which is defined as a mix of neighborhoods serving retail that provides for daily and weekly needs of surrounding neighborhoods and supporting services, office and neighborhood compatible institutional uses included. This area may include residential uses and formats that support the principal retail uses in the area or serve as a transition to adjacent neighborhoods. Neighborhood centers rely on compact, walkable, or park once format, and connections and transitions to adjacent neighborhoods and other supporting land uses are critical. Furthermore, the comp plan, the N1 area plan, defines the area as office or small scale multi-unit housing. Staff has reviewed the criteria for an amendment to the to the official zoning map and considered the comprehensive plan and requirements of the UDC and recommends approval of the rezoning request from general business to and light industrial to light industrial exclusively. The proposed land use for this general development plan is storage, residential warehouse, office, and retail. The proposed site plan shows buildings A and B, which are located near the center of the Flex Spaces site, which will likely be where the storage, residential warehouse, and office land uses will be located. Buildings C, D, and E, which front Northwest Jefferson Street and include more modern architecture such as corrugated metal siding, composite wood accents, and floor-to-ceiling front windows, will likely be occupied by office and retail land uses. The building types that are being utilized for this general development plan are the general industrial buildings, which are permitted in the LI district. All proposed buildings meet the general industrial building type standards, except for building E. The only standard building E is unable to meet is the rear setback of 20 feet, which is the single alternative development standard we'll get to in just a moment. Kind of looking through these sheets here, you can see the elevations and a picture reference of the building materials that will be utilized on each of the buildings. This is building A that's situated towards the center of the site and is kind of be designed more for those residential storage warehouse type of land uses. Here's the section of building A as well. Moving on to building B. Not quite as many units here in this building B. These will have a little bit of office component located in the front pedestrian door area of these spaces. And then moving down into buildings C, D, and E are the units that have more of those retail frontages along Northwest Jefferson Street. As you can kind of see building C, D, and building E finally. All right. The alternative development standard that's being requested relates to building E's rear setback. It's proposed for 8 feet from the building face to the north property line, which is shared by this development and another light industrial land use. Because of the alignment of Northwest Jefferson Street, which narrows at the east end of the site, meeting all applicable development standards, including buffers, drive aisles, parking, setbacks, and so on, is rather complicated. For the applicant to fit in an appropriate building on this end of the site, it was determined that the landscape buffer, drive aisles, and parking standards were priorities to maintain over the rear setback distance to the north property line. And that measurement there is shown right there at that northeast corner of the building. A development plan of this nature that features tenant spaces that lend themselves to a mix of land uses may be best addressed with a Schedule C off-street parking study. The applicant has provided a study in the project narrative that analyzes the demand of the original flex spaces at 3401 Northwest Duncan Road. That original development shares the same characteristics in terms of proposed buildings, in terms of land uses as this development. Accounting for the proposed building square footage and likely tenant mix, the applicant has determined that 62 off-street parking spaces would be sufficient. Furthermore, the applicant has also indicated that up to 12 parking spaces would be provided within Building A for those leasing the units. A public sidewalk will be provided along Northwest Jefferson Street from the property's east to west boundary, making a significant connection to the existing sidewalks on either end. This will complete an important gap in the existing sidewalk system along Northwest Jefferson Street. A single access point to Northwest Jefferson Street will be provided for this project, with the north side of the site being connected to the original Flex Spaces development that has a driveway on Northwest Duncan Road. Based on the traffic volumes and anticipated generation, a traffic memo is not required for this development. The original Flex Spaces development included a dry stormwater detention basin with extra capacity to handle future expansion if needed. The engineer for this proposed development has indicated the stormwater needs for this development will be met by use of the existing facility. The applicant has indicated that a master alternative sign plan will be applied for to identify signage types for the development to complement the architectural features of the project and create consistency across the site. Sign images shown on the general development plan are only illustrative at this time. Along Northwest Jefferson Street, the development will provide the buffer edge frontage type, which is defined as a concentrated and heavily landscaped and/or bermed open area used to separate the site and any potential impacts of the development and site design from the streetscape or adjacent lots. Furthermore, the Jefferson Street frontage and a small portion of the west property line will require a 15-foot wide landscape buffer consisting of 45 plant units per 100 linear feet. The remaining property lines abut LI zoning and do not require this same landscape buffer. Landscaping requirements, including total plant units, will be reviewed in greater detail during the site plan design review process with a final landscape plan. During the Planning Commission meeting, which was held on August 26, 2024, the Commission voted 8-0 in favor of both the rezoning and general development plan applications. The Commission also approved the associated preliminary plat. Staff has reviewed the criteria for a general development plan and alternative development standards and is recommending approval of the general development plan with an alternative development standard and 6 conditions. The conditions have been listed at the end of the staff report. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff from the council? Councilmember Taylor.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Your Honor. Will these units look like the original units, their first phase units that are there to the north? Is that correct?
They do share similar characteristics, yes, similar facade materials.
Okay. Similar, but not like.
I could probably have the applicant is here and have them.
Okay, let's jump to another one, then we'll ask him when he comes up. Thank you. On the east side of the E building, garage doors, they're on the east side, correct? Or is that something we need to ask them?
Building E does not have any garage doors.
Okay. And you said it was 8 foot on the north side of the E building?
Yes, sir.
And then the retention pond, are we doing anything to that? We've kind of let it go here since they've been there on the north side. And we doing anything upgrades to it or anything?
When you say let it go, what do you mean exactly?
It needs mowed.
Oh, just the condition of it.
Yeah.
So there will be
It's
some
very,
additional.
very rough.
Yeah, there's some additional landscaping that'll be required to be planted in or around the perimeter of it, at which time, as part of their inspections, we'll go out and make sure that everything's been seeded or sod appropriately, and then that stuff is in a good condition at the time when we inspect.
Oh, that's the other question, Winnie. Thank you, sir.
Councilman Fowler, did you have something? Okay.
Just quick question. How much sidewalk will be missing then from the east to the west between Casey's and this property? I've driven by there 100 times and I'm just curious. Do you have any idea? Not much?
I'm not sure offhand. We could probably get a quick measurement on it.
I have that answer. That was part of the phase 2, and it's 75 feet.
Okay.
I've got a question about the use of the property to the north of the E building. You said it was also a light industrial use. If I looked correctly, it's just a parking lot behind that building. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it's kind of used for storage for some of their company vehicles. I think it's like a Comcast or some sort of telecommunications company that uses that property for their needs.
Okay. Any other questions for staff? Is the applicant present? Like to come and answer questions, make a presentation?
Raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, so help you God?
I do.
So give your name and address for the record, please.
Yes. It's
Patrick Joyce, 436 Northeast Brockton Drive in Lee Summit, Missouri. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you for having us here tonight. My name is Patrick Joyce. I'm with Kimley Horn. I'm the civil engineer for the project. Also with me is Jared Jacobs with the Elevated Ventures Group, the developer for the project. So, okay, we got my stuff loaded up here. I've got a little pointer that worked kind of at Planning Commission, and I know that the end's kind of rough, so I'll try to hit both sides. So Mr. McCumber did an excellent job of covering most everything, and I'll also try to sprinkle in a few more just to help answer maybe some of your questions that I heard. The site, as he mentioned, this is phase 2 of the Blue Springs Flex Space, which has been a very successful project. We basically are going to be subdividing this into 2 more lots in addition to this detention basin tract that we've got, which the two are there, and then the detention basin tract. Next slide. This is just a slide showing the front face of what you'd see along Duncan, showing the increased glass. This is part of the plan. Part of what we plan to do is we're transitioning our site from more of the core industrial stuff that's going to look a lot, basically we're using the same materials that we used in phase 1, but as we move south, we're getting more into this glass look to make it look more retail, to help blend it more with the uses as you come down towards Jefferson. What's out there today, we're also going to be, basically cleaning up the area. This area is existing today as a large asphalt parking lot. That's the picture that you see right there on the right. And you also have an old barn, that yellow shed that's sitting there, and that house, which are going to be also demoed as part of this project, and the ground basically cleaned up out there. So next slide, if you would. Mr. Burcumber did a great job explaining what this was, building A, B, C, and D and E. Basically, this one little, just to touch on this, we're going to have kind of a maneuvering area on the inside between here to have more of a truck or a dock height doors for this building B on the south elevation. Those show up in your elevations when we get to those. We're also having a connection to phase 1 via a couple of connection points right there on the south side of phase 1. Traffic circulation is going to be such that you can only really go one way from this side down south. This will be our primary point of access off of Jefferson for phase 2, which will come in and you'll be able to access the more office retail areas. That'll likely be a little bit more lively than what you're going to see in the back, which is going to be the more of the industrial use. Next slide. Here's the landscape plan, just to also to address a question that we heard. We are dressing that area up where the detention basin is going. With the addition of building A, we're looking at additional landscaping throughout the site, just on the south side, as well as up along the frontage of the street. And then we've got some to share with our neighbors to the west along that detention basin. And then, of course, we've got landscape throughout the site wherever we could put it. Obviously, there's a existing sanitary sewer that kind of is a T through the site, so some of those areas are bare, but we really can't plant over those, so we did not. So that's what you're seeing there. Okay, next slide. These are the elevations. I think Mr. McCumber did a great job of going through those, so I won't belabor these. I don't know if there's anything else. Maybe next slide. Yeah, just more of the same. So, yeah, so I think that's probably all that I've really got to present, given what the thoroughness of Mr. McCumber. So we're happy to stand for any questions, and we are also in agreement with the stipulations. So,
All right. Councilman Kaler.
Okay, again, so similar outside as you're having on the original site to the north, correct?
That's correct.
My understanding is with a little bit more windows in the front to give the, more of a storefront type deal.
Correct, for the southern buildings, C, D, and E.
So, well, I notice on one of the elevations there is a dock door. I don't think there's not enough, really a lot of room for manipulations for a semi truck. I assume, I hate to assume, but that's kind of like for a little box.
Yeah,
truck.
they're going to be smaller. There's not, if you're looking for like the big WB67s and stuff, there's not the maneuvering room without getting tricky and having to disconnect your trailer. So that's not really the thought, but it is more of the box trucks, small at-grade deliveries, things like that.
Yeah, and you lose on the north side of the second phase, so to speak. Those on the south side, there was some parking spaces on the south side with the two exits to the north out of it. You're going to lose some parking spots out of that, correct?
Yes, you're correct. We are losing a few spots to make way for those access points.
And we won't expect any outside storage of.
No, that's one of the stipulations was,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Councilman Erickson.
First of all, the original flex space, I compliment you on that because you did what you said you were gonna do and it looks very nice. I think it's exemplary. You answered Jerry's questions very well, I think, but the retention basin, it was said that it needed to be mowed, but if it's mowed, it's mowed. It just looks like mowed weeds. And you're gonna put landscaping, you're gonna do any other hardscape or any of that kind of thing in it that might make it look a little nicer all the time?
I guess I might have to defer to Jared if there's, when it comes to site maintenance, is the question that to be honest, I have not looked down into the basin. I've been to the site obviously, but I haven't gone over and looked down in. Is the question that we're seeing bare spots or
No,
that it needs reestablished or?
The statement is it looks bad right now. And if it's only mowed and has trees planted on it, it'll look bad, except we'll see trees where it's only mowed. That's like, what's gonna make it look like the rest of the project, to make it fit in with the project?
Sure. Well, when we had originally designed it, and that when it was designed in the original phase, which my office also did, we had intended for it to be grass, like fescues and such. I would expect that to be what it is. So.
Yeah, that area would get seeded and manicured like the front of the site. We knew with the pending development, we've kind of left that in a state of improvement. So in addition to that landscape, all that would be seeded and maintained.
I would just say that what you've done on the north side in the ditch looks pretty good. If that's an extension of what you're gonna do, then that would be great.
Yeah.
Any other questions for the applicant? I just had a quick question. So you said you were involved in phase one.
Yes.
What types of renters have you had and what do you anticipate being different with phase two?
Well, I'll let Jared answer that, but.
In terms of tenancy in that space, it's been incredibly vast, probably more vast than we anticipated. So currently I've got anything from a barber to plumbers to fitness to real estate agents and stagers. And so that's probably the favorite part about this product type is we're seeing just a wide variety and I would anticipate more of the same. You know, that space, that sub 5,000 feet space is probably one of the more underserved, and so it's just been a great place. We've had businesses come in and they'll take 1,000 feet and then they'll ask for 2,000 feet, and you know, that's kind of the idea. We want to grow these guys until they grow out of this space, but it's been wide. So yeah, everything from, you know, fitness. We have a chiropractor in there, so it's an architectural firm. So it's endless.
Thank you. Councilmember Colvin.
Yeah, based on that question, my understanding is that there are other facilities similar to this, and they have waiting lists. So there's obviously a high demand for this type of facility.
Yeah, and our phase one also does now have a waiting list as well. And
Right.
so, yeah, we anticipate actually a fair amount of some of the existing tenants from phase one expanding into phase two.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
With that, I'll go to the public. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak in support of? Well, Mr. Carl, if you could get sworn in and then give us your name and address for the record.
You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, so help you God.
I do. My name is Jeff Carl. I live at 1111 Northeast Waterfield Village Drive here in Blue Springs. Usually I watch these meetings on your closed circuit TVs, and you usually don't get very many people coming up to say something in support of a project, but I am. I just had a couple of questions similar to Mr. Kaler's as I observed the development plan. First of all, your plan does, as Mr. Kaler indicated, your building E does show doors on the east and west end of the building. The site plan, though, does not show access to the doors. I'm presuming, again, since you said that there are no doors on that building, that plan has been amended. And then, if that is the case, I'm curious, when these buildings get built, do you just build them to shell, or do you build them to like the 12 units, or do you wait until you have a tenant that tells you, hey, I need X number of feet, and you work from there? On building E, if that's going to be a retail building or retail office building, and you have 4 tenants in that building, where you've got the 4 doors on the front, I'm confused on the back then that we don't have rear access. Same on building A. And then if the developer could talk to which of these buildings include plumbing. I got the impression, listening to the planning department meeting, that like the building A, those types of buildings wouldn't have any plumbing. Let's see. Dock eyes, you already talked about that, so I'm assuming that, again, box trucks similar to the tool tenant that you have on the north side. But other than that, I thought, what I'm curious from the planning department, when we talk about small industrial workshop type uses being allowed in the L1, does that mean you can put in like a high performance auto shop or engine shop or marine shop? That's a question that I just had. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carl. Anyone else in the audience would like to speak in support of? Support of. Does anyone like to speak in opposition to? Any further comments from the council before we close the public hearing?
Yes,
Councilmember Culpepper.
thank you. I would like to hear some of those questions addressed, whether it be staff or the applicant.
Okay. So I think we can start off with the high performance engine question. That is a client that is avoided, and doing that work inside the building. Auto repair, mechanic shop, things like that are not what we're after.
I'll add to, so in terms of the workshop too, we've entertained some cabinetry or millwork tenants before, and through that exploration, there's a lot of additional requirements to that, from explosion-proof fixtures and dust removal systems, and so we learned something about that, and now we avoid those tenants, and most of that would then require a special use permit that would have to be applied and approved for. So anytime a atypical tenant would come up, and mind you, we're trying to maintain a community within the space, and so any atypical tenant would be sent here into City Hall to apply and be approved for that special use permit. But we do try to specify who we want to be in the space.
Yes.
And plumbing?
To which buildings?
Oh, yeah.
There was a question about the plumbing issue.
Yeah, so phase one, we have both types now with those two buildings. So that double loaded building, the larger of the two, those are all central air climate controlled. They all have half baths dedicated. And then within that building is a tenant accessible communal bathroom that the tenants from that smaller B building utilize. So that product type is, does not come factory climate controlled or with plumbing or bathroom. So the tenant type we see in there is, we have some resellers, online sellers, and part of our fitness groups use that space, and they maintain access to the shared bathroom, and then we do option for those tenants to add a mini split heat air for that space as well.
Okay, and then the plumbing for these, as the citizen said, there is none to building A, and the rest of them have limited facilities. I think there was also a question related to the access doors on E. Those doors are there. We had then they are done like that on purpose, where there are overhead doors on both the east and west elevation. They wanted to go ahead and leave them there, but it's not like a place to back up and, you know, back your van into, because obviously we have parking stalls on the east side. On the west side, it may be possible, but that was done for more just general access. We left them in there. We're not 100% sure if they're really going to be utilized, but we're just trying to make the space as flexible as possible. Other questions, I think there was some questions on the access on building A, no doors on the back side. That's also correct. And that's more of like an architectural feature that they didn't need them. And so we're really just looking to access that building from the north side. So what other questions was there?
Tenant finish?
Oh yeah, how do we finish? Yeah, sure.
And that's a good question, and we try to, as we get into the construction phase, we'll try to stave off, as we start to pre-lease, we'll dedicate space. Those internal demising walls are non-structural, so they have a lot of flexibility. We try to kind of wait till the last minute to install those walls, and then we will install them on like an as-needed basis. So somebody may come and say, we're interested in 3,000 feet, we'll bookmark that, and we'll install those walls accordingly. But those are very flexible.
All right, thank you. I thought the questions were excellent, and appreciate your addressing them.
I just have a question again on back building E, since you're looking for the variance there, if you don't have any, you only have a single ingress egress from the building. How do you does the city have a code requirement requiring ingress and egress two ways? And on like building A, does that mean since you've got an overhead door and a walk-in door, that qualifies as 2 points of ingress egress? That's planning department, I think, question there. But if you have.
We can address that. Mr. Carl, until you're up at the mic, let's give us a second to address that, but then we'll need you to come back up if we have any other questions. Does staff understand what that question was? Do you have anything?
Yeah,
to
it
add?
appears that the questions are more related to the building code
Okay.
section, and how the building code would be applied, whether there's 2 points of egress or ingress to the building itself. That's not something we're looking at the general development plan stage. We're looking at general architecture, general site layout. Can the buildings meet the parking setbacks, landscaping, things of that nature? The buildings will obviously have to go through a site plan design review phase, and also all applicable building permit requirements.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions from council before we close the public hearing? Mr. Henderson, can you give us I know you were sworn in, but you didn't give us your address for the record.
Sure, and I'm, Matt Hendrickson is my business partner. I'm Jared Jacobs.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
We got you switched on
Yeah,
the
it's-
slideshow then, okay.
And my address is 25896 Pleasant Valley Road, Wellsville, Kansas.
Okay, thank you. All right, if there's no other questions or comments, then I will close the public hearing. Next item on the agenda is just the rezoning, introduction to reading of Bill 5251, rezoning for flex spaces.
I will introduce that, Your Honor.
First reading of bill. First reading of Bill 5251, an ordinance approving rezoning property located at 3405 Northwest Jefferson Street, which contains 4.19 plus or minus acres of land from GB General Business and LI Light Industrial to LI Light Industrial for flex spaces.
Your Honor, move the bill be approved on its first reading and proceed with the second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, no? Second reading.
Second reading of Bill 5251, an ordinance approving rezoning property located at 3405 Northwest Jefferson Street, which contains 4.19 plus or minus acres of land from GB General Business and LI Light Industrial to LI Light Industrial for flex spaces.
Move the bill be approved on its second reading and assign the appropriate ordinance number.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Tholen.
Aye.
Fowler.
Aye.
Erickson.
Aye.
Culpepper.
Aye.
Kaler.
Aye.
Mayor Levesey.
Aye.
Carried unanimously and given ordinance number 5357.
Next is introduction and reading of Bill 5252, approving general development plan for flex spaces.
I will introduce that, Your Honor.
First reading of Bill 5252, an ordinance approving the general development plan with an alternative development standard and conditions for flex spaces located at 3405 Northwest Jefferson Street in Blue Springs, Jackson County, Missouri.
Your Honor, move the bill be approved on its first reading and proceed with the second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, no?
Second reading of Bill 5252, an ordinance approving the general development plan with an alternative development standard and conditions for flex spaces located at 3405 Northwest Jefferson Street in Blue Springs, Jackson County, Missouri.
Move the bill be approved on its second reading and assign the appropriate ordinance number.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Fowler.
Aye.
Erickson.
Aye.
Culpepper.
Aye.
Kaler.
Aye.
Tholen.
Aye.
Mayor Levesey.
Aye.
Carried unanimously and given ordinance number 5358.
Next item on the agenda is public hearing of Ashler Homes annexation. City Clerk, do you have items to read into the record?
Mayor, the city has one exhibit to enter into the record. City Council information form dated August 20th, 2024 with the following attachment. Site location maps, petition of voluntary annexation with attachments, affidavit of publication in the Examiner on August 17th, 2024, 185-foot notification map, names, addresses of property owners within 185 feet of site, copy of letter sent to said property owners, and revised letter sent to said property owners, and bill approving annexation. This is all we have to enter for the record.
Staff, if you'll be sworn in and give us your report.
Do solemnly swear that the testimony about giving this community will be the truth, so help God.
I do. Dave McCumber, 903 West Main Street, on behalf of the city. Before you this evening is a request to approve an annexation of approximately 71.62 acres into the city of Blue Springs. The property is generally located north and south of 40 Highway and east of the Adams Point Golf Club. The property is owned by the applicants Judy D. Smith, Larry D. Bellington Estate, and Bruce M. Bellington Trust, and is generally located north and south of 40 Highway and east of the Adams Point Golf Club. This request is for the public hearing and first reading of the bill for the annexation petition. The second reading of the annexation petition and annexation agreement is scheduled for September 16, 2024 City Council agenda. The property is currently undeveloped and consists of natural, open, and heavily wooded areas with a creek bisecting the property from north to south on its east side. South of 40 Highway, there is the property is undeveloped, heavily wooded, and nearly half of which is occupied by a floodway. The annexation petition was received on July 26, 2024, and the initial public hearing is occurring within the state statutes required 60 days. Staff believes that the proposed annexation meets the general criteria for annexations as outlined under the Missouri Revised Statute 71.012, that the property is contiguous and compact to the existing corporate limits of the city, that the annexation is reasonable and necessary to the proper development of the city, and the city is able to furnish normal municipal services to said area within a reasonable time after annexation. Staff has reviewed the criteria for annexations and recommends approval of the annexation. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff from the council? Councilmember Fowler.
Yes, Your Honor. I think external to this, there was a meeting notice to local area residents on this on September the 10th. They must be going over more than just annexation, I would assume.
So that meeting is for the following development applications for the property if annexed. There are currently applications in the office for rezoning as well as plan development concept plans for residential subdivision. And that's what that neighborhood meeting is scheduled for, with the developer and nearby residents or property owners.
Other questions? Councilman Erickson?
You mentioned floodway.
Yes, sir.
Is that going to encumber city finances if we do that, or is it just a moot point that it's a floodway? We have to maintain it, we have to do anything special for it?
No, the property owner would be responsible for maintaining it and everything, and it's just basically a restriction on building permits and things like
Okay,
that.
thanks.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, is the applicant present? Want to answer questions, do a presentation? You'll be sworn in. Give us your name and address for the record.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, so help you God?
I do. Jake Haddock with Schlegel, 14920 West 107th Street, Lenexa, Kansas, zip code 66215. I don't have necessarily a presentation. You are correct that the PD concept plan, preliminary plat, and rezoning application has been submitted. The annexation will be through on the second reading before that will be presented to Planning Commission. And so this is just kind of the first step in the process to be able to submit that application officially through the Planning Commission. Don't necessarily have anything else, but am happy to answer any questions that may arise.
Any questions for the applicant on annexation? That's really all we're talking about tonight. Okay, you did a good job.
Easy one, right?
Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak in support of, in opposition to? Any other comments from the council before we close the public hearing? Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Next up is first reading only of the Ashland Homes annexation.
I'll introduce it.
First reading of Bill 5253, an ordinance annexing 71.62 plus or minus acres of property located north and south of 40 Highway and east of the Adams Point Golf Club into the city of Blue Springs, Missouri.
Your Honor, move the bill be approved on its first reading only tonight.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
That passes. Next item on the agenda is public hearing of the fiscal year 2024-2025 budget. We'll let her get a moment to get settled, but if Administrator Cates will be sworn in and then give us your presentation.
Mayor, the city has one exhibit to enter into the record. City Council information form dated August 2nd, 2024 with the following attachments: budget in brief, notice of public hearing published in the Examiner on August 13th, 2024, and bill adopting the 2024-25 budget. This is all we have to enter for the record.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth?
I do. Christine Cates, 903 West Main Street, on behalf of the city. This public hearing is for the proposed fiscal year 24-25 budget, which is for $95,995,532, which represents an increase from the current year's adopted budget of $85,746,282 by $10.2 million, or 11.95%. The increase is primarily due to capital improvements planned in the next fiscal year in the Park Sales Tax Fund and the Sewer Fund. A budget work session was held with the City Council on Thursday, August 15th, 2024 to discuss this budget. The attached budget in brief, which starts on page 145 of the agenda, summarizes the proposed 24-25 budget. The revenues page of the budget in brief includes the 10 largest sources of revenue for the city. These include sales from water and sewer service, sales taxes, property taxes, grants, and franchise fees. General fund revenues are expected to increase by 5.69% or $1.7 million, and this budget maintains the required operating reserves of 25% of general fund expenditures, operating expenditures. The next chart shows the total revenues by category type that include the top 10 that we just discussed and 5 other categories that include licenses and permits, charges for services, golf course fees, fines and forfeitures, interest income, and other revenues. The expenditures include salaries and benefits, supplies and materials, contractual services, debt service, capital outlay, and capital improvements. The city has 339.13 full-time equivalent positions. The FTEs have increased by 3 positions for next fiscal year, which includes the addition of 4 animal control officers and moving the city attorney position from a full-time equivalent to a full-time contract. The next page shows the budget expenditures by function totaling the $95.99 million. The capital improvements and capital outlay plan for next year totals $23 million. And all of the specific projects are outlined here that were approved in the CIP back in July, and includes the addition of the capital outlay of $2.1 million, and those are all of the expenses in the individual departments for equipment and vehicles throughout the year. The majority of the funds of the $23 million will be spent on maintenance items totaling almost $14 million, almost $15 million. This table does not include projects totaling $40 million that were approved in the August election. As these projects are scheduled and the bonds are issued, this budget will be amended for these amounts. We are also reviewing the remaining funds in the sidewalk account to see if there are funds available for another sidewalk infill program, and that budget would also be amended to account for those. Some more capital. The next chart details a property tax distribution for the typical Blue Springs resident. The numbers reflected here are for the 2023 property tax levy. At the bottom, the description says 2024, but we have not set that levy yet. That levy will be set at the next council meeting, and it will be updated for the final printing of the budget. The city receives approximately 7% of the total tax bill, which generates $7.9 million in property taxes for the city. That includes the general operating levy and the debt service levy at 15 cents. This chart details a sales tax distribution for the 8.75% of sales tax collected in Blue Springs. The city receives 4% of this 8.75%. In special districts, including TDDs and CIDs, the sales tax can be up to 1% higher for a total of 9.725%. There are maps on the city's website that indicate these special districts. The next page is a summary of available net assets. It includes starting balances, projected revenues and expenditures, transfers in and out, and the ending balances for each fund. This chart currently shows a negative balance for the Carson Ross Community Recreation Complex and is related to the transfers needed for the final payments for the Aquatic Center from the Park Sales Tax Fund. The last page is a summary of the budget in brief that includes all of the information in different formats from the previous pages. This page will also be updated when the next tax rate levy is set, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff from the council? Councilmember Fowler.
Yes, Your Honor. You did say that the $40 million approved at the last election is going to be separate from this. I understand that. One of the things we talked about last year, and I know this year is, I guess, putting the money away for, is proposed improvements to Wyatt Road. Could you explain that?
Yes, those funds are in the current year's budget, so we will carry over those funds because that project will not be bid by the end of this fiscal year. So they'll be carried over, and then once it is, and put on a reserve PO, and then once that contract is awarded, then it will come to the council for approval.
And when do you see that the improvements being provided to citizens?
We had a meeting last week on the next steps for it, and they indicated to us it'll be about 2 months for them to obtain the right-of-way that's needed from the property owners along there, so we're looking at bidding at the first of next year.
Okay.
So next construction season, ideally, if everything goes well.
2025. Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Other questions from the council? Okay. Then we will go to the audience. Does anyone in the audience like to speak in support of? It's mostly staff, so I hope you're supportive. Anyone to speak in opposition to? Any other comments from council before we close the public hearing? We'll close the public hearing. Next item is introduction and first reading only of the 2024-2025 budget.
I will introduce it, Your Honor.
First reading of Bill 5254, an ordinance approving, adopting, and appropriating the annual operating and capital budgets of the City of Blue Springs, Missouri for the fiscal year October 1st, 2024 through September 30th, 2025.
Your Honor, move the bill be approved on its first reading only tonight.
Is there a second?
Second.
What comments from the council? Any discussion?
Thank you.
Yeah,
Lot of work
Councilmember
by staff,
Fowler.
and really appreciate putting it all together this year. You know, that each year it's a brand new, large challenge, and making sure that everything balances. So,
Yeah, I would be remiss if I didn't point out, I believe we got the award again for budget, so I don't know how many years running that is now, do you know?
We're getting up there.
We're getting in.
Close to 30, I believe.
We're in 3 decades almost, so
Maybe close to 40, actually.
good job to the finance staff. I don't see Karen here, but that's good. Okay, any other comments from council? Councilmember Fowler?
It seems like this time every year is when we start hearing about the last minute motions to add something else.
Yeah, well, Councilmember
I know-
Edmondson's not here, so
oh,
maybe
okay, that
that.
explains it. All right.
I will just say as discussion, because I brought it up at the work session meeting, I do have some concerns about the street maintenance where we currently are. I don't know that it fully represents, at least where I'd like to get priorities in the budget. At that point, I'm willing to give staff the benefit of the doubt to try to work towards that. I know we are working on it, and we've made that clear. Also, the overall funds for street maintenance include in addition to Wyatt Road, AA highway, I believe is 1.5 million that's being.
From next year,
From next year.
and then the additional year as well, there's some funding.
So we are, as we have in the past, prioritizing certain projects that there is money for streets going to, and I know the residents, especially of that neighborhood, Eastwood, I believe it is, have been asking for that for years. So we're making progress. It's slow but sure. And so I would like to see us increase the amount of street maintenance that we are doing in our budget moving forward. But I think for this year, we're doing what we can with what we have. So, any other additional comments?
Your Honor,
Yeah,
since
Councilman
we
Erickson.
talked about that, how much is left in the street, in the sidewalk infill?
That's what we're checking to
Oh, you're
see.
checking,
We
okay.
will wait till the end of the fiscal year to determine that all expenses have been brought in, and then
Okay.
we'll take a look and see what could be done for next year.
So Councilmember Fowler, that will not be a last minute amendment, that's an already thought about amendment.
And it's really a compliment, staff. I understand what the mayor's talking about street fund, but it's good to come to one of these and not have a last minute amendment put out there.
Staff agrees with you.
Oh, thank you.
All right, with that, first reading only, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Okay, motion passes. Next item on the agenda is introduction and reading of bill number 5255, easements for Wyatt Road improvements.
I will introduce that, Your Honor.
First reading of Bill 5255, an ordinance accepting right-of-way and temporary construction easements from the abutting property owners for the Wyatt Road West improvements.
Your Honor, move the bill be approved on its first reading and proceed with the second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Second reading.
Second reading of Bill 5255, an ordinance accepting right-of-way and temporary construction easements from the abutting property owners for the Wyatt Road West improvements.
Move the bill be approved on its second reading and assign the appropriate ordinance number.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Erickson.
Aye.
Culpepper.
Aye.
Kaler.
Aye.
Tholen. Aye. Fowler.
Aye.
Mayor Levisay.
Aye.
Carried unanimously, given ordinance number 5359.
Next is item 12, introduction and reading of bill 5256, easements for Zarda Development Company.
I will introduce that, Your Honor.
First reading of Bill 5256, an ordinance accepting permanent drainage easement, temporary construction easement, and water line easement from Zarda Development Company, Inc. for drainage improvements at Northwest 7 Highway and Northwest Vesper Street.
Your Honor, move the bill be approved on its first reading and proceed with the second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Second reading.
Second reading of Bill 5256, an ordinance accepting permanent drainage easement, temporary construction easement, and water line easement from Zarda Development Company, Inc. for drainage improvements at Northwest 7 Highway and Northwest Vesper Street.
Move the bill be approved on its second reading and assign the appropriate ordinance number.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Culpepper.
Aye.
Kaler.
Aye.
Tholen. Aye. Fowler.
Aye.
Erickson.
Aye.
Mayor Levisay.
Aye.
Carried unanimously and given ordinance number 5360.
Next is introduction of reading of bill 5257, a contract with Mid-America Regional Council for Vesper Hall meals.
I will introduce that, Your Honor.
First reading of Bill 5257, an ordinance approving a contract between the City of Blue Springs and Mid-America Regional Council, MARC, for congregate and homebound meal preparation, site transportation via Oats, Inc., and the administration of Vesper Hall.
Your Honor, move the bill be approved on its first reading and proceed with the second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Second reading.
Second reading Bill 5257, an ordinance approving a contract between the City of Blue Springs and Mid-America Regional Council, MARC, for congregate and homebound meal preparation, site transportation via Oats, Inc., and the administration of Vesper Hall.
Move the bill be approved on its second reading and assign the appropriate ordinance number.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Kaler.
Aye.
Tholen.
Aye.
Fowler.
Aye.
Erickson.
Aye.
Culpepper.
Aye.
Mayor Livesey.
Aye.
Carried unanimously and given ordinance number 5361.
Next is introduction of Reading Bill 5258, request for proposals for the lumberyard property.
I will introduce that, Your Honor.
First reading of Bill 5258, an ordinance declaring certain parcels of city-owned real property as surplus and authorizing the solicitation of offers for disposition thereof.
Your Honor, move the bill be approved on its first reading and proceed with the second.
Is there a
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Second reading.
Second reading of Bill 5258, an ordinance declaring certain parcels of city-owned real property as surplus and authorizing the solicitation of offers for disposition thereof.
Move the bill be approved on its second reading and assign the appropriate ordinance number.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Tholen.
Aye.
Fowler.
Aye.
Erickson.
Aye.
Culpepper.
Aye.
Kaler.
Aye.
Mayor Livesey.
Aye.
Carried unanimously and given ordinance number 5362.
Next item is visitors. I don't have any speaker appearance forms, so we'll move on to council comments. Any comments from the council, meetings you have, any events coming up you want to highlight? Doesn't look like it. I'll mention just a couple of things then. Next council meeting will be actually on a Wednesday, September 18th. Much of the council is going to be at the Missouri Municipal League conference. Maybe we'll have a concert. So we will not have that meeting until Wednesday, the 18th. First Chiefs game coming up Thursday, if anybody's excited about that. So, and I don't have any other events that staff notified me of. So, unless council has any curveballs like Councilmember Kaler threw last week, then we will accept the motion to go to executive session.
So moved.
Mayor, motion is in order for council to go into closed session pursuant to section 610.021, subparagraphs 2 and 9, revised statutes of Missouri, for the purpose of privileged communications between a governmental body or its representative and legal counsel, including real estate and employee groups, and that any minutes, documents, and other records discussed or taken during the closed session remain closed, and that this body stand adjourned at the completion of such session.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is this a roll call?
It is.
I'll have roll call.
Councilmember Fowler.
Aye.
Erickson.
Yes.
Culpepper.
Aye.
Kaler.
Aye.
Tholen.
Aye.
Mayor Livesey.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, we are going to executive session.